Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Cherry Heat Check, a Lobo basketball and Mountain West basketball podcast. I am a sad Lobo fan and Lobo graduate today as we saw the New Mexico Lobos give an all-out effort during a loss in the second round of the NCAA Tournament to the number 2 seed Michigan State Spartans, 71-63 in a game where the Lobos led by 10 early. I was getting excited and getting nervous 10 minutes into the game, thinking what it could all mean, just to see it all kind of crumble away in the second half. Very, very disappointed in what happened in that game, not disappointed in the effort or the Lobos team and how they faced that deep Michigan State squad. I'm going to get all into it here, talk about the details from that game, what the future may hold, sprinkle a little bit of the Colorado State action in, and just kind of appreciate and also use this as my Lobos therapy session, as it's been a tough run over the past 12 hours or so with the Lobos losing in the second round. Today is March 24th, the day after that loss to Michigan State. In a game, where most Lobo fans probably didn't expect Amzil to come out firing. He did so right away, hitting big threes. The Lobos jumped out 10-2. Michigan State battled back, slowed the game down, began to draw fouls, began to jump in and create contact for themselves. Timely shots. Trey Holloman capped off, a big run for Michigan State to end the second half with a free throw. They closed on a 9-2 run to end the half, and the Lobos had a long scoring drought at the end of the first half that carried on into the second half. And getting back to Amzil, a lot of heat coming his way, not just over the first game, but the whole season, battling the injury, coming up big in this one. You can't say enough about his effort. Didn't do a lot in the second half. But we all know it really came down to, the fouls and just what Nelly was going through out there and how he battled. Fantastic game for Nelly. But before I get into some of those details, I kind of want to get into just how this New Mexico team was covered leading up to this Michigan State game in the press conference, with the CJ Nolan, Philip Borovichinen the day before the game. All the questions directed to the two New Mexico players were about the Michigan State coach, rightfully so, Izzo, but we're also about their own father, or their own coach's father, Rick Pitino, Richard Pitino's father. And, Borovichinen grew up in another country. CJ Nolan wasn't born when these guys started coaching. So to be asking them these type of questions and not questions about the team themselves was kind of odd. Jeff Grammer even called those guys out kind of during the press conference. So thanks to Jeff for doing that and kind of getting the focus back on the team. But even during the game, you could tell the announcers, were more excited when Michigan State did things. It seemed like everything, including obviously the crowd being in favor, only a couple hours away from East Lansing, showing up to Cleveland. CJ Nolan said it felt like a home game, for the Spartans. So the Lobos playing, in a road environment with the chip stacked against them. The refs weren't going to give them anything, obviously. We'll get into the foul calls. But you can't be disappointed with how UNM played. Just too many, mistakes down the stretch, turnovers, and big-time shots by Michigan State at times where they really needed them, even though they didn't make a lot of threes. You got to give credit to Holloman, other guards, Fears of Michigan State. They just kept coming in waves. The bench actually outscored the starters, and the Lobos bench, I believe, only added 7 points. In that depth that everyone, expected Michigan State to come out with really showed. It was just, the guys coming off the bench, they have a transfer, Fiddler, on Michigan State, who was a starter at Omaha, scoring 20 points a game last year, comes to Michigan State as a role player, made some big time shots, inside the key there for the Spartans in the second half. And I believe Carr, number 55 as well. Big time blocks, big time energy for Michigan State. And, the Lobos supporting cast has always been, the part in question outside of Dent and Nelly, and how would they be able, to support those guys. And in this game, obviously it wasn't the best showing for the others. But looking at the game stats real quick here, field goal percentage was almost even, 48% for the Lobos, 44% for the Spartans. Each team only made 4 threes, which, we probably could have expected. But the free throw discrepancy is where most people are crying. Only 10 free throws attempted for the Lobos to 28 for the Spartans. Rebounding battle also went to the Spartans, 34-28. And the strange thing for Lobos only having 7 assists. And this is something, I've seen all year. The ball does not move a lot for the Lobos. It's heavily dependent on, ball handlers making something happen off a screen or off of penetration. Not a lot of passing back and forth across the key or inside out for the Lobos. Only 7 assists in this one. And, I was mentioning the blocks that Carr had. Michigan State had 7 blocks overall to the Lobos 1. Turnovers were almost even. I believe Donovan Dent had 4 of those turnovers, including, I believe, that inbound pass down the stretch that was stolen when he passed it in. So very emotional evening. My daughter wondering why I'm rolling on the floor in joy and also in agony down the stretch. But I just want to, kind of think about why I'm in that pain, why it hurts so bad. And I think it's just because of the joy that this team brought, the way it united fans from the Lobos, not only in Albuquerque. I live here in California. I see people from Florida, East Coast. All UNM graduates are people from Albuquerque that, got united by this team and the energy they brought. So we can't, thank them enough for that. And I think that's why we love sports, because regardless of whatever else is going on in our life, we had this to look forward to, and very thankful for these gentlemen. But looking, deeper into this box, Borovichinen did hit that first 3. After that, did not make a field goal, 1 for 2 at the stripe. Hurt his shoulder falling down in the second half. Toughed it out, 7 rebounds. I'm praying that he will be back in the cherry and silver next year. Mentioned Amzil, but the key, not only in this game, but for most of the season, has been Nelly Jr. Joseph. First time he's fouled out all year. The other game where he had foul trouble was here in the Bay Area where I live, against San Jose State, where the Lobos ultimately lost the game because Nelly sat out, big time minutes after getting 4 fouls early and not being able to play a lot of that game. So, Lobos offense struggled big time when he was not in there. When he came out around the 8.5 minute mark after getting that 4th questionable foul, Atiki comes in. Lobos are only down 4. Nothing happens on the Lobos offense. And, during that 4-minute stretch that Nelly is then sitting out, Atiki fumbled a pass. The Lobos missed a few shots. I think another turnover occurred. And in my mind, I don't know if you can leave Nelly out that long, because And I know you wanna save him as long as you want, but you also can't let the game get out of hand, and he was the only offensive option the Lobos had the entire game, making mincemeat out of whoever guarded him down low. It was simple for him going 7 of 9, but he should have had 20 shots in this game, and it seemed like in the second half, before he picked up that 4th foul, they went to him 2 times in a row, but then the next 2 possessions, they didn't get him the ball. And I know it's not always easy to feed the post, but when he's your only option, you have to find a way. I think, maybe pulling him out at the 8-minute mark is okay, but you gotta get him back in by 6 minutes. The game was getting out of control. You know, no slight of a Tiki, but this was not, you know, his time to play, and I think you have to leave Nelly in regardless. Even if he fouls out at 5 minutes, at least maybe you're only down 4 or 5 points instead of 8. That's the only other questionable coaching decision I mentioned, Donovan Dent, turning the ball over on that inbound pass. I believe Nelly was still out of the game. Dent is the shortest player on the court, and I know, but I don't know about having the shortest player on the court bring the ball in on the baseline, with an athletic Michigan State team, a guy jumping up and down in your face, having to make that pass over someone, as a shorter guy, even though you're the most talented passer on the court is not easy. Uh, you know, their inbounds passes have been fantastic, and they got good looks, all year, including one in this game where True Washington missed a point blank layup in the first half. But I don't know about having the shortest guy inbound the ball in that situation. Looking at Michigan State's guys, like we mentioned, the bench led by Trey Holloman, um, Cohen Carr, Carson Cooper, and Frankie Fiddler, who just hit those clutch buckets. And as we mentioned, only 4 threes for this Michigan State team, but that one that Jaden Akins hit from the top, also Trey Holloman, the 2 he hit were just gut wrenching, for the Lobos. They were just really timely. Gave Michigan State all the energy, slapping the floor on defense, pumping up the crowd, getting the refs to, call anything their way. And just looking kind of deeper into those fouls that were called on Nelly, I mean, they were fouls. Could they have possibly not been called fouls? Yes. Uh, it's just hard to see when, the way that basketball is played, this foul baiting basketball that Harden and Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, others in the NBA have perfected, and I know it's now part of the game and the smart players use it. It's just a tough watch, when you got guys not even attempting to make a basketball move and flying in to draw the foul. And I know, drawing fouls is a good thing and part of the game, but after Nelly made that shot and they called a foul on him on the quick inbounds, where the guy just basically ran into Nelly's side or whatever it was. That was a tough one to take. Um, Very tough. And I don't think, these Mountain West referees that the Lobos and Rams, other teams have had to deal with all year, do them any favors by calling ticky-tack games and then getting into the tournament with officials from the Power Four and, experiencing what the Lobos did. And you could also say for Colorado State, was it a traveling call at the end of their game? I'll discuss that a little more as well. But as I mentioned in the previous pod, it was going to come down to depth, free throw shooting, and rebounding. And ultimately, the foul trouble on Nelly was just something that the Lobos can't or couldn't overcome, anytime this season, really, but especially when you're playing a team like Michigan State. Um, Lobos showed they, played with them the entire game, showed that they belong. This is a very tough pill to swallow because UNM deserved, to be there, obviously. They gave it their all, and it was within grasp. It really was. And the last time Lobos, had a shot against a 2 seed, I believe it was 1996 in the second round against Georgetown and Allen Iverson, Othella Harrington. Lobos were loaded with Kenny Thomas, Lamont Long, Royce Olney, Spider Smith, and they ultimately fell to Georgetown also that year and a 2 seed. So I think that's why it's so painful, is because we don't know when this can occur again. We want to think that it will be consistent, but with all the moving pieces of coaches, players, we just don't know anymore. And I think Coach Patino has to kind of he has been treating Donovan Debt kind of like his Bitcoin. As long as he has this resource he invested in early, I think he will stay at New Mexico, and depending on what those two decide what to do, I think we'll have obviously the biggest impact on the Lobos moving forward. But when Lobo fans only get this feeling, it's been back-to-back years going to the tournament. It's been great after waiting 10 years. It was probably 10 to 15 years before that, before we had this type of success. So tough pill to swallow today, really. Haven't hurt from a sports loss this bad in some time, but I just want to thank all the fans that listen here, all the people that interact with me on Twitter. I got random people sending me messages about press conferences, statistics, asking questions, commenting. So I've just loved even being out here in California, becoming part of, the Lobo conversation as, a two-time graduate of the school, someone who grew up there, kind of pulled back into, heavy Lobo fandom the past few years, and something I'm proud to be a part of and proud to represent. So as bad as this hurts, I want to appreciate Nelly, an all-out effort, Amzil, all-out effort, CJ, not his best shooting night, really struggled, fantastic first round game, but his leadership all year was key. And, those seniors, along with the Tiki, they won't be forgotten. It's just tough watching them walk off the court a final time after all the joy they brought us this year as Lobo fans. We will look forward now to the portal that is open today, March 24th. We have some guys already going in. We have some coaches already going out of the conference. But I think the Lobos, just arriving home in Albuquerque this afternoon, should be holding their heads very high. I don't think when I was at Mountain West Media Days in Las Vegas in October, I would have ever expected them to be going toe-to-toe with the Michigan State team and have every chance to win that game. I was living in La La Land that first half, that's for sure. But to see the growth of Dent as a leader, to see Nelly emerge, I know I'm rambling here about the same stuff, but looking back over what it's brought to all of us, I'm just truly grateful to have had a small part in covering it, talking to those guys, and giving us a season that we'll never forget. Players will never forget. We'll see. Hopefully Donovan will stay another year if he doesn't, turn pro. But I would expect his picture up on the pit walls along with Nelly Jr. Joseph, and the impact that Nelly had on this team in 2 short years is just incredible. And, with JT Toppin exiting, Nelly really emerging, Mustafa Amzil emerging, you can't say enough about the growth of those guys. And the guys on the bench as well. Jovan really didn't get many minutes, did knock a 3 down the stretch. other guys really didn't get much of a chance in this game, and I think the depth really just showed a team we thought would be a little bit deeper. The Lobos, that being, we're not able to hang for 40 minutes with a team like Michigan that I don't think any team can go as deep as this Michigan State team. So it'll be interesting to see how Michigan State goes playing forward. But Apple Hahn's only 2 minutes in this game. Strong season for him, though. I'll have probably another wrap-up podcast, just kind of highlighting all the greatness of this season. 27-8 for the Lobos. Mountain West regular season champs, 17-3. I think we're picked second or third preseason in the conference, behind Boise, who did not make it and will be playing in the Crown tournament here. So we'll get back to the Lobos. Just wanted to momentarily touch on this Colorado State and Maryland game as well. Another difficult loss for the Mountain West schools, as we saw. Derek Queen just hit a very, very difficult shot for Maryland down the stretch. Could have been called a travel. Took about 3 steps. One final stop, and I just feel so bad for Clifford, for Lake. Those guys, seniors, played their hearts out. Jalen Lake, 3 tournaments for Colorado State. Nico Medved getting this team just to buy in, evolve over the course of the year, and make it to this point. Kyan Evans just with a flamethrower from 3. Just really impressed with the way Colorado State finished this year. Very disappointed that they had to go out in that way. And as a Lobo fan, I think I'd rather lose the way the Lobos did by about 8-10 than a last-second shot like that. But fantastic season for Nick Clifford and the Rams. One I will remember for them as well. But it sounds like Coach Nico Medved reportedly, has received offers from Minnesota, where he is from. I believe, he's an alumni from, was either a manager or a ball boy at Minnesota at one point in time. So it looks like he will be moving on to coach Minnesota, leaving Colorado State, unfortunately for all Ram fans, after, just a fantastic stint there. He went 143-84 at Colorado State, with 1 Mountain West championship, 3 NCAA tournament appearances for Coach Medved. One would think, like most national media are saying, the next coaching search would begin on the Colorado State bench, where assistant Alik Farouk-Manesh, who's an assistant there, who's been key, was a player at Northern Iowa. I would expect him, like others, to be getting the first interview. So maybe they stay in-house with Coach Farouk-Manesh. Other coaching news I'll hit on real quickly. UNLV did fire Coach Kevin Kruger. There are reports coming out today, March 24th, that, who are they looking at now? That they're targeting Arkansas State head coach Brian Hodgson, who I believe has been at Arkansas State for 2 years. So, interestingly enough, I believe UNLV had been targeting the San Diego head coach, but now it looks like it'll be Brian Hodgson, possibly, of Arkansas State. Other coaching news: Utah State coach Jared Calhoun is currently a target of West Virginia, where he is from, after Coach DeVries left West Virginia for Indiana. So lots of movement already around the Mountain West coaching. Transfers already entering, as we know, for UNLV, DJ Thomas, Jaden Henley, Rob Whaley from Nevada, Nick Davidson from Wyoming, Obi Ogbum. I saw one of their other guards is also entered, and surprisingly enough, Nick Boyd from San Diego State is transferring out, who spent 1 year with the Aztecs after coming over from FAU, and he's someone I thought would stick around at San Diego State to finish up his career. So that is very strange. For the Lobos, I guess just looking forward quickly, I just wanted to look at what their roster kind of looks like going into next season as far as scholarships, who's coming back, who's not. You know, we have 4 seniors, like I mentioned, that will be exiting. That would be Nelly, Mustafa, Atiki, and CJ Noland. Coming back as of now, or who are eligible to come back. Players will be having meetings with Coach Pitino, I would assume, you know, after they get settled, coming back from Cleveland today. Donovan Dent would be a senior. He's eligible, obviously, to come back and would be priority number 1. Borovichinen, Daraje Agbase, who is the senior, and I believe he was on scholarship this year. He did not walk on senior night. Did not play, to my knowledge, over the past 2 seasons. Quentin Webb, he will be a junior, still on scholarship. True Washington will be a junior. Sako Appelhans will be juniors as well. Jovan Milicevic and Kate Dotson will be sophomores. I believe Daniel Thomas, there was never any official word about him redshirting, but he did not play any minutes, so I would expect him to use that redshirt season so he can extend his career. He's a forward from Texas. We'll call him a freshman. And then the walk-on from Albuquerque, Dylan Chavez, I'm assuming he'll be considered a redshirt freshman. 2 incoming recruits are both guards, Jalen Petty, he'll be an incoming freshman, and Isaac Williamson will be on scholarship as well. So if we do some quick math, we're adding 2 scholarship players, removing 2 scholarship, or no, and removing 4 scholarship players. There should be 2 scholarships available for the Lobos. And since the portal is open, I would believe the Lobos coaches like Coach Chu and others are seeing who's available today, because the names are already flying around out there. Obviously, post presence will be needed most if the Lobos do keep intact their core. Obviously, re-recruiting the core of Dent, Borovichinen, Washington, Milicevic, and Dodson, in my eyes, will be key. You know, we didn't get to see much out of Asako. I would, you know, obviously all these players will be invited back. He's able to play, you know, the 4 position. Appelhans had a very good shooting season. Could see him getting more minutes off the bench. Dodson, you know, his game will continue to evolve as he already has a man's body, and showed his ability to hit the 3. So obviously the biggest glaring hole, post presence, seeing who's available in the portal from, you know, maybe some of these bigger schools where the coaches are leaving, the team didn't finish, you know, the way they expected. You know, there'll be a lot of offers flying around, but re-recruiting these core guys, hopefully if Coach Pitino, you know, does not take another offer with Villanova now being open, VCU being open, and also now Xavier being open, we would expect that Coach Pitino could be getting those calls. Fernando Lovo and others in the athletic department, Jaden Dominguez, Ryan Berryman, will obviously be getting prepared to extend Patino or re-offer him, um, whatever they think is a good amount to keep him around, which I'm thinking will have to be north of 2 million if one of these other schools is offering around 3. Um, I guess looking forward, I will dive more just into what, accomplishments this Lobo team got this year, what legacy they're leaving behind. But just really devastated. Trying to keep my energy up today after that Lobos second round loss and that mountain we still cannot get over. We'll be following all the transfer news though, all the coaching news. Very grateful for everyone that's listened to this show and followed already. We'll be bringing on some guests in the future and continue to just bring content that I feel other people cover in the Lobos will not be bringing. That will wrap up the Cherry Heat check for today and the Lobos game versus Michigan State in a loss in the second round. Trying to hold our heads high. Very proud of the effort, disappointed in the result. But we will move on, and we will catch you next time on the Cherry Heat check.